The world is going through an unprecedented crisis that threatens to forever change the way we consume. Global supply chains are breaking down, ships are arriving empty, and prices are rising relentlessly. What we took for granted yesterday could disappear from the shelves tomorrow. Can you imagine going into a store and not finding basic products like food, medicine, or clothing? Today you will discover 25 items that could disappear very soon, and some will surprise you more than you imagine. 1. Basic foodstuffs. Rice, wheat, corn, and cooking oil are fundamental pillars of the global diet. However, they depend on complex supply chains that connect several continents. A drought in a producing country, a conflict in a key region, or an uncontrolled increase in shipping can cause these foods to disappear from the shelves in a matter of days. Food insecurity is no longer a problem of distant countries, but a real threat to everyone. When prices rise and supply falls, middle-income families are the first to feel the blow. 2. Coffee and cocoa. The coffee you drink every morning and the chocolate you enjoy are products that depend on a few producing countries. Droughts in Brazil, crises in West Africa, and rising logistics costs are already reducing global supply. The result is simple: less production and much higher prices. Cafes, bakeries, and supermarkets are beginning to report shortages in some areas, which could make coffee and cocoa unattainable luxuries for many. The risk is not only economic, but also cultural, because these products are deeply rooted in our routines and celebrations. 3. Bottled water and imported drinks. Bottled water seems endless, but its production depends on imported plastics, labels, caps, and machinery. When these supplies are lacking, plants reduce production and shelves become empty. The same applies to international soft drinks and beers that require specific ingredients that are difficult to replace. The result is a fragile market where what seems abundant today may cost twice as much tomorrow or simply not be available. Global interdependence means that even a delay at a port on the other side of the world directly impacts your dinner table and your daily consumption. 4. Essential medicines. Antibiotics, insulin, and cancer treatments depend on active ingredients that are mostly manufactured in Asia. Replicating that infrastructure in other places takes years, not months. This means that a disruption in the supply chain could leave hospitals and pharmacies without viable alternatives. The health of millions of people is at stake because we are talking about vital drugs that cannot be easily replaced. There are already reports of delivery delays and rising prices. When medicines become inaccessible, the problem ceases to be merely economic and becomes a threat to life itself. 5. Diapers and powdered milk for babies. Baby products should be the last to run out, but in reality, they are among the most vulnerable. Diapers, wipes, and powdered milk depend on imported chemical materials and components that are currently in short supply. We already saw a crisis in 2022 that affected thousands of families, and what's coming could be much worse. The lack of alternatives and the essential nature of these products make them urgent necessities. Manufacturers are starting to ration orders, and music prices are rising every week. Parents could face a critical scenario, forced to improvise solutions that are not always safe. 6. Personal hygiene, toilet paper, soap, toothpaste, and shampoos seem like basic products that will never be lacking. However, its production depends on imported chemicals, packaging, and machinery. When one of those links breaks, production immediately decreases. We are no longer just talking about comfort, but about public health. If the population cannot access hygiene products, health risks increase and multiply. This has already happened in different countries during past crises. The difference is that now it is not a sudden increase in demand, but a real and sustained shortage in production. 7. Smartphones and tablets. Our phones and tablets have become, well, extensions of our lives. However, more than 80% of its components are manufactured in Asia. Chips, screens, and batteries depend on highly specialized factories that cannot be replicated elsewhere overnight. The consequence is clear. If the supply chain is broken, prices skyrocket and availability plummets. A new smartphone model could cost twice as much or even disappear from the market. And without these devices, many everyday tasks such as remote work, education, or even banking would be seriously compromised. 8. Laptops. Remote work and online learning have made the laptop an essential tool. The problem is that most processors, memory, and motherboards come from factories concentrated in a handful of Asian countries. If one of those pieces is missing, the whole chain stops. This is already happening with delayed deliveries and prices that increase without apparent explanation. Some schools are once again recommending traditional methods, such as printed books due to a lack of devices. The risk is not only economic, but technological, because it threatens to hinder the digitization of millions of people in the 21st century. 9. Televisions and screens. Televisions and monitors are part of entertainment and also of work. Although the brands are different, almost all of them depend on the same manufacturers of panels, chips, and circuits that are produced in Asia. That means that in the face of any logistical problem, the supply suddenly contracts. The consumer then faces two scenarios: prices that double or completely empty shelves. Some chains are already limiting units per customer to extend stock levels. Leisure time at home, which has become essential after the pandemic, could become a luxury reserved for a few with greater purchasing power. 10. Large household appliances. Refrigerators, washing machines, microwaves, and ovens are essential in any modern home. However, they depend on electronic parts and control systems manufactured thousands of kilometers away. If those parts are missing, local production simply cannot continue. Repairs are increasing because families prefer to keep their old equipment rather than pay exorbitant prices for a new one. Distribution chains are already warning that they will not be able to replenish inventory at the usual rate. This means that in a few months, getting a household appliance could be as difficult as buying a luxury car, a true transformation of domestic consumption. 11. Small household appliances. Blenders, coffee makers, toasters, or air fryers are items present in almost every kitchen. However, what many people don't know is that they use motors, resistors, and electronic boards manufactured in Asia. When those components are scarce, production decreases and the available models become alarmingly expensive. Some brands are already prioritizing their best-selling products, leaving aside the variety that used to fill the catalogs. This means that it will soon be difficult to choose between options, and what remains in stores will cost much more. The convenience of having small household appliances could become a memory of the recent past. 12. Basic clothing. T-shirts, jeans, underwear, and socks seem like goods that will never be in short supply. But the reality is that a large part of the textiles, dyes, and fibers come from abroad. Furthermore, garment manufacturing processes are highly concentrated in countries with low labor costs. If those trade routes are disrupted, inexpensive clothing disappears and prices skyrocket. We no longer talk about fashion, but about basic necessities. Consumers could face the paradox that dressing decently costs the same as we currently pay for an electronic device. Cheap clothes would cease to be commonplace and become a true luxury. 13. Shoes. Footwear is another product that is highly exposed to the global crisis. From sneakers to basic sandals, over 70% is manufactured in Asia. The industry relies on specialized machinery and labor that cannot be easily moved to other countries. The result is that when factories shut down, the global supply of shoes virtually collapses, prices skyrocket, and the most popular models disappear within weeks. Entire families could have difficulty buying school or work shoes. What we take for granted today could become an unexpected economic and logistical challenge. 14. Furniture and decoration. Sofas, shelves, mattresses, or lamps are an essential part of any home. What few people know is that they depend on processed woods, textiles, and imported hardware. Expensive shipping costs and shortages of raw materials are delaying deliveries and driving up prices. Major music stores are already warning of months-long delays in restocking inventory. Even local brands need foreign components that are currently scarce. This means that decorating a house, renovating a bedroom, or simply buying a table can become a luxury. The furniture industry, once a symbol of abundance and variety, is facing one of its most serious crises in decades. 15. School supplies and office materials. Backpacks, pencils, pens, markers, and calculators seem easy to produce, but in reality, they depend on factories distributed globally. More than 70% of these products are manufactured in Asia, and there are already reports of order delays. Some schools recommend reusing materials from previous years or reducing supply lists to the bare minimum. Even the specialized paper and inks come from industries that are currently facing serious difficulties. The risk is that education will end up being affected, with students lacking access to basic tools. Something as simple as starting a school year could turn into a logistical and economic challenge. 16. Toys and board games. Toys are part of childhood, but more than 80% come from Asian factories. Dolls, action figures, electronic games, and even classics like Monopoly depend on these supply chains. If they are interrupted, the stores empty out right at the most anticipated times of the year. There is already talk of a possible empty Christmas in some markets where prices could triple. This not only affects children, but also parents who find it impossible to uphold traditions. Family leisure time could be limited to what little is available, marking a before and after in consumer culture. 17. Glasses and contact lenses. Visual health depends on products that many consider basic: prescription glasses, frames, contact lenses, and special solutions. 90% of the frames come from Asia, along with much of the manufacturing machinery. In addition, the chemical solutions needed for contact lenses also depend on global trade. When those supplies run low, patients face a serious dilemma. It's not about luxury, but about vision and quality of life. Opticians in various countries are already reporting order delays and recommending that their customers purchase replacement parts while stocks are still available. Seeing clearly might no longer be so simple. 18. Vehicles, bicycles, and scooters. Electric cars, motorcycles, bicycles, and scooters face an uncertain future. The lithium batteries, electronic chips, and most of the mechanical components come from foreign factories. This is already causing delays in the delivery of new vehicles and a significant increase in prices. Even traditional bicycles rely on parts that are only produced in Asia. Personal transportation, which seemed accessible to everyone, is beginning to transform into a luxury. Furthermore, mechanical workshops are already warning that they cannot guarantee spare parts will be available on time. Mobility, so essential in daily life, could become one of the scarcest commodities. 19. Fuels and car parts. Well, liquid fuels are still the heart of global mobility, but they are also under pressure. Geopolitical instability and high transportation costs are driving up the price of gasoline and diesel, directly affecting millions of drivers. Furthermore, basic spare parts such as tires, oils, or filters depend on foreign factories and are taking longer and longer to arrive. This means that keeping a vehicle running will become increasingly expensive and complicated. Auto repair shops are already warning that many repairs will be left pending due to a lack of parts. The combination of expensive fuels and a shortage of spare parts threatens to paralyze everyday mobility. 20. Tools and hardware: screwdrivers, hammers, nails, saws, or drills. They all seem easy to produce, but much of it comes from factories in Asia. More than 70% of hand tools and almost 80% of power tools depend on that production. This makes construction and home repairs highly vulnerable sectors. Some hardware stores are already limiting the number of units they sell to professionals and individuals. The risk is that basic activities such as fixing a door, installing a bookshelf, or repairing a water leak will become disproportionately expensive. Domestic self-sufficiency could be severely affected. 21. Leisure electronics. Video game consoles, drones, music, cameras, and other digital entertainment devices face an uncertain future. The global shortage of chips and batteries directly affects this industry. Brands are already warning that new releases will have higher prices and limited availability. Technological leisure, which previously seemed accessible to most, will become a privilege for the few. For many young people and families, this means losing an important part of their daily entertainment. Even the second-hand markets are starting to boom because demand far exceeds the available supply. 22. Sporting goods. From balls and rackets to gym equipment and technical shoes, a large part of sporting goods depends on Asian production. The logistical crisis affects both professional and amateur sports. Bicycles, balls, and equipment are already experiencing months of delay in delivery, and prices are rising rapidly. This limits access to recreational activities and fosters inequality because only those who can pay more will have access to quality sports equipment. The paradox is clear. At a time when physical health is more important than ever, products that promote it could disappear or become inaccessible to millions of people. 23. Pet products. The crisis doesn't just affect people. Dog and cat food depends on vitamins and minerals that are produced abroad. If those additives become scarce, even locally produced food is compromised. The same is true for toys, beds, and carriers, which almost always come from Asian factories. Specialty stores are already reporting gaps in their shelves, and some brands have disappeared completely. This means that keeping a pet could become much more expensive and complicated. The emotional impact will be enormous because for millions of families, animals are an essential part of the home. 24 items for the home and kitchen. Pots, pans, dishes, plastic containers, and other everyday utensils also depend on global inputs. Many companies are reducing their catalogs to focus on their best-selling products, leaving less variety on the shelves. The result is an increasingly limited market where consumers will have to settle for what is available without being able to choose. Even premium brands face delays because they depend on specific parts. Cooking at home, something we take for granted, could become a logistical and economic challenge. The objects that accompany daily life lose their character as simple tools and become scarce goods that everyone competes to obtain. 25. Snacks and imported products. Imported snacks and drinks, from Chaboba tea to Swiss chocolates or Japanese cookies, are already starting to disappear from supermarkets. It's not just about Chinese products, but of any food that depends on ports or supplies from Southeast Asia. Tea bars and specialty shops are reporting serious supply problems, and some products have simply disappeared. This does not affect survival, but it does change cultural and social habits. Enjoying international flavors could become an occasional luxury. Globalization, which seemed to guarantee abundance and variety, is now becoming an increasingly distant memory for millions of consumers. What we face is not a temporary problem, but a profound change in world trade. The abundance and low prices that seemed normal to us could be a thing of the past. Food, clothing, medicine, and technology are already showing signs of scarcity, and what's coming will be even more challenging. It's not about generating fear, but about understanding the magnitude of what is happening and preparing ourselves. Adapting to a world with less variety and higher prices will be key to the future. The question is, are we ready for a lifestyle where the essentials become a true luxury again?